Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating, and honestly, one of the most overlooked books in the entire Bible, the Book of Numbers. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Numbers. Isn't that the book with all the, numbers? The long lists of censuses and genealogies. And you're right, it does start that way. But trust me, that's just a prelude to an epic 40-year saga of adventure, rebellion, faith, and transformation. So, let's set the scene. The Israelites have just escaped from Egypt. They've received the law from God at Mount Sinai, as we saw in the book of Exodus and Leviticus. They're organized, they have their instructions, and they're standing at the edge of the wilderness, ready to march into the Promised Land. The journey from Egypt to Canaan should have taken about 11 days. Instead, it took 40 years. The Book of Numbers tells us why. It's the ultimate road trip story, filled with detours, drama, and some incredible life lessons. The book gets its name from the two major censuses, or numberings, of the Israelite people. The first one happens right at the beginning, at Mount Sinai. This isn't just about counting heads. It's about organizing the nation for the march and for battle. Everyone has a place, a tribe, a role. It's a picture of order and readiness. This first generation, fresh out of Egypt, is poised for victory. Their leader, of course, is Moses. He's the guy who talks to God face to face, the patient, yet sometimes frustrated, leader trying to guide a stubborn nation. By his side is his brother, Aaron, the first high priest, responsible for the nation's spiritual life. So, they set off from Sinai, with the Ark of the Covenant leading the way, and a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night guiding them. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, not so much. The complaining starts almost immediately. They complain about the food. They're tired of manna, this miraculous bread from heaven. They start fantasizing about the fish, cucumbers, and onions they had back in Egypt. You know, back when they were slaves. This sets a pattern that we see again and again throughout the book. God provides. The people complain. God gets angry, and Moses has to step in and mediate. It's a tough job, but the real turning point, the moment that seals their fate for the next 4 decades, happens at a place called Kadesh Barnea, right on the border of the Promised Land. Moses sends 12 spies, one from each tribe, to check out the land. They go in, and they come back with a report. And what a report it is. They confirm the land is amazing. It's flowing with milk and honey, just as God promised. They even bring back a cluster of grapes so huge it takes 2 men to carry it. But then comes the but. 10 of the 12 spies say, "But the people who live there are giants. Their cities are like fortresses. We felt like grasshoppers next to them. There's no way we can beat them." Their fear is contagious. It spreads through the entire camp like wildfire. Suddenly, the whole nation is weeping, panicking, and rebelling. They accuse Moses and Aaron of leading them out into the desert just to die. They even talk about choosing a new leader to take them back to Egypt. Amidst all this chaos, 2 of the spies stand up and push back. Their names are Joshua and Caleb. They have a completely different perspective. They say, "Yes, the people are strong, but the Lord is with us. We can definitely do this. Don't be afraid." They try to rally the people, reminding them of God's power and His promises. But the crowd isn't having it. They're so consumed by fear that they try to stone Joshua and Caleb. This moment of disbelief is a massive act of rebellion against God, and the consequences are severe. God declares that this entire generation, everyone 20 years and older who grumbled against Him, will not enter the Promised Land. They are sentenced to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days the spies were in the land until that entire faithless generation passes away. only their children will inherit the promise. And of the 12 spies, only Joshua and Caleb are spared. This is the heart of the book of Numbers. It's a story of a generation that saw God's miracles firsthand, the plagues in Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, but failed the test of faith at the critical moment. So, the next 38 years are spent wandering. The book details their journey, filled with more rebellion, more challenges, and more lessons. There's the rebellion of Korah, a Levite who challenges the leadership of Moses and Aaron. He and his followers argue that everyone in the community is holy, so why do Moses and Aaron set themselves above everyone else? It's a direct challenge to God's chosen authority, and the ground literally swallows Korah and his followers. It's a stark reminder of the seriousness of rebelling against God's appointed order. We also see moments of failure from the leaders themselves. In a famous incident, the people are complaining about having no water. God tells Moses to speak to a rock, and water will flow from it. But Moses, in a moment of extreme frustration with the people, strikes the rock twice with his staff instead of speaking to it. Water does come out, but because Moses disobeyed and dishonored God in front of the people, God tells him that he, too, will not be the one to lead the people into the promised land. Even the greatest leaders are held accountable. This moment is a tragedy, showing the immense pressure Moses was under, but also the high standard required for leadership. But the book isn't all gloom and doom. Amidst the wandering and rebellion, there are incredible stories of God's continued faithfulness. One of the most unusual and famous stories is about a non-Israelite prophet named Balaam. The king of Moab, Balak, is terrified of the Israelites, so he hires Balaam to curse them. But every time Balaam opens his mouth to speak a curse, a blessing comes out instead. God literally puts words in his mouth. In the most comical part of the story, Balaam is riding his donkey, and an angel of the Lord stands in the path to block him. Balaam can't see the angel, but the donkey can. The donkey keeps turning aside, and Balaam gets angry and starts beating it. And then, God makes the donkey talk. The donkey says, "What have I done to you that you have beat me these 3 times?" It's a wild story, but the point is powerful. God's blessing on his people cannot be turned into a curse. His purposes will stand, no matter who tries to oppose them. Balaam ends up delivering some of the most beautiful prophecies about Israel's future strength and the coming of a future king. As the 40 years draw to a close, the old, rebellious generation has passed away. A new generation has grown up in the wilderness. They've learned from the mistakes of their parents. They've learned to depend on God daily for manna, for water, for guidance. And so, near the end of the book, on the plains of Moab, on the east side of the Jordan River, it's time for another census. This is the second numbering. This new census counts the new generation, the men who are ready for battle and ready to inherit the land. It's a bookend to the first census, showing the transition from the generation that failed to the generation that will succeed. The book then lays out new instructions for them about how to divide the land, laws for offerings, and preparations for their new life. Finally, as the book concludes, Moses appoints his successor. Joshua, one of the 2 faithful spies, is publicly commissioned to take over. Moses lays his hands on him, and the transfer of leadership is complete. The stage is set. The new generation is ready. They have a new leader, and they are camped just across the river from the Promised Land. The book of Numbers ends on a note of hope and anticipation, leading us directly into the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses will give his final farewell speeches. So, what's the big takeaway from Numbers? It's a powerful story about the journey of faith. It shows us that the path isn't always easy or direct. It teaches us about the devastating consequences of unbelief and complaining, but it also shows the incredible, persistent faithfulness of God, even when his people are unfaithful. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences, that leadership is a heavy responsibility, and that what we pass on to the next generation truly matters. The Book of Numbers isn't just a dusty history book full of lists. It's the story of an entire generation's journey from slavery to the brink of freedom. A journey through the wilderness that tests and forges them into a nation ready to receive their inheritance. It's a raw, honest look at the struggle between faith and fear, and it's full of lessons that are just as relevant for our own journeys today. Thanks so much for watching and taking this journey through the wilderness with me. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next video. We'll be picking up right where we left off. See you next time.